Good morning. And it's doing the thing again.
Yeah, no, it sits and does it for a second. Don't worry about it.
I'm waiting for it to blow up. Okay. Good morning. And let's see. I can't see the chat.
Yeah, it'll load in. Don't
It'll
worry
load
about it.
in. Okay.
There you go.
All right. We are live and first weekend of the launch for Red Velvet and Anemones, and it's going really well. So I thought the first thing I would do was read you one of my reviews that makes me so happy. Yeah, see my bee sticker because I can't find the queen. I am a queen, and so I'm going to read, and then after this, I'm going to go visit my bees because they're at my neighbors. This review was left on Amazon by Robob19, and it says, "Wow, love it. Milli shows you can choose your path, bitter or better. I almost double dog dare you to read the prologue, then put this book down. If that doesn't grab you, I don't know what will. As you read, if you are like me, you'll want to keep turning the pages even when it's way past bedtime. This book not only tugs at your heart, but pulls at your emotions, ones you don't realize exist. How do I even try to give a review without giving spoilers? Let's just say this story will have your emotions in a tornado swirling around. There are characters you will be so drawn to that it's like you really feel their pain. Then there are characters that will draw you to, all right, draw you into wanting to strangle them. I love that. um, Millie, wonderful, beautiful, innocent Millie. The pain she was forced to live through doesn't take care of the love she bestowed, and it might take a while, but I'm thinking Aunt Karma will show up and hand out good things to Millie for all the good she accomplished, and just maybe teach a few tough lessons to those you want to strangle. This book is written with lots of heart. It may be fiction, but it has many real life issues within the pages. It delves into the choices we make and how we can choose to be bitter or to be better. Love it." And that's 5 stars.
I think I spelled Millie wrong.
Did you spell Millie?
Yeah, I spelled Millie wrong.
You're so.
I've edited this whole book and
TDM
I still.
is here. TDM is here 2 days before she goes to boot camp, and she's being very silly.
I can't spell, but they want me to work on a nuclear reactor. This is great.
She also has the unique skill of putting potatoes in the microwave and turning them into lava.
3 years ago. 3 years ago.
Yeah. It was terrifying.
It's not that bad.
The house smelled like potato charcoal for 3 days.
I sat in my room as I heard it all unravel. It was great.
The youngest started screaming in the kitchen, and I ran in the kitchen, and there was a ball about the size of an egg rolling around in the microwave, spitting sparks and flames. So I scooped it out of the microwave and ran outside with this
with a glass bowl
lava ball. And she comes out, and I'm like, "What is this?" And she goes, "My potato.
My poor potato.
You killed your potato."
I didn't mean to.
All right. All right. This is a little thing that didn't make the book. I read an excerpt from chapter 4 where they refer to this in the last video. So I will just start reading now. Little Milli Vanilli waved at her new friends as she got off the bus, then went up the long white stone path to the Haywood mansion. Stepsister Marnie had gone to dance class, so Millie rode the bus alone on early release day. She let herself in with the key she had never used. Millie stood in the foyer and called out timidly, "Hello?" The maid was gone for the day. The house felt oddly empty and overwhelming. She walked through the mansion and up the grand staircase to put her backpack on her desk in her bedroom. She hung her coat and looked at the clock. It would be at least 2 hours before anyone else came. She had never been alone in the Haywood home. My home, Millie corrected herself. Mommy Emily said this is my home now. Her bedroom was bigger than the whole apartment she had lived in with her biological mother Diva and little brother Duran. Millie's tears came unbidden as she thought about the day that she took her brother and tried to flee from their mother's abuse. Duran was crying louder. He was so hot and kept pushing his bottle away and pulling at his ear. She did not know what to do. Millie tried to shush him. Then she heard the sound she feared most. "Shut up, you worthless brat!" Diva shrieked as she staggered into the room. Their mother still had blood running down her arm from shooting up. She yanked the toddler away from his tiny sister's arms and began shaking him violently, making him scream louder and struggle. "Mommy, stop! Mommy, please stop!" Millie begged, pulling at her mother's arm, but she wasn't big enough. Diva didn't even seem to notice Millie hanging from her arm. There was a sickeningly loud pop, and Duran stopped screaming. He just hung limply and made weird gurgling noises. Panicking, Millie bit her mother on the arm. "You bit me, you bitch!" Diva dropped Duran and snatched Millie up by both arms, twisting them until Millie screamed. "How dare you bite Mommy, you ungrateful brat!" I'm, Millie stammered between sobs. S. Diva's milky jade eyes were wild and wide as her beautiful face twisted into something evil. "Say you're sorry and you love Mommy, or you're a bad girl." "I love you, Mommy. I'm sorry. I love you, Mommy. I'm sorry." Millie chanted the demanding words and cried as Diva continued to twist her arms. Then Diva threw her on the floor next to her baby brother. "You better love me, you worthless slut. You're as useless as Roxy, and I'll kill you too if you don't be a good girl." "Are you a good girl, Milli Vanilli?" "Yes, Mommy. I'm sorry, Mommy. I love you, Mommy. I'm a good girl." Millie sobbed with her voice cracking. Her wrist hurt so much, worse than they ever had. As Diva staggered toward the bedroom, Millie tried to make her hands work, to pick up her brother. Duran, look at Sissy," Millie begged in pained whispers. His eyes were vacant, like Roxy's eyes had been after their mother killed her. Desperate for help, Millie managed to get her arms around Duran and stood up. She bit the latch on the screen door and opened it with her mouth, and pushed it hard with her foot when it squeaked. Diva yelled at her. "Where do you think you're going?" Millie struggled to carry her brother across the yard while Diva staggered after her, shrieking like a monster from a nightmare. As Millie ran across the street, she tripped on Duran's foot, and they tumbled to the burning pavement. Tires squealed louder than her mother. The car horn blared so loudly, Millie closed her eyes and waited to be squished like the neighbor's cat. But she wasn't squished that afternoon. Panicking, Millie sat on her bed, weeping, because she was alone and could not stop the memories of the nightmare her life had been before that day. That day, Duran had died and left Millie alone in the world except for their murderous mother. That day, Dr. Emily changed her life and fought Diva for her. Hearing the clock chime downstairs, Millie hurried to the kitchen, hoping it was the back doorbell, but no one was there. "Hello!" Millie cried out, panting in panic. Only the echo of her fear answered in the giant empty silence of alone. Millie rushed into the pantry and slammed the door. The small space was the same size as the walk-in closet that had been her bedroom for most of her life. It felt safe. The light turned on automatically as Millie sat on the floor, staring up at the fancy fixture with tears running down her face. A minute passed, then another, then many more. She heard the clock chiming the quarter hour in the foyer, while Millie stared from shelf to shelf. She had never seen so much food in one place, except the corner bodega or the food pantry. Twice a month, until her death, Roxy had taken Millie to help carry home the charity that had kept them alive while their mother sold her food stamps for drugs. She remembered Roxy cooking for her and teaching her how to make macaroni and cheese or ramen in the microwave. But Millie was a lot older now, 3 years older, 8 years old, almost a grown-up. Thinking of Roxy's courage, Millie stood up and began touching the boxes, cans, and jars. So many different kinds of food, more kinds than she ever imagined existed. She wondered what it all tasted like. Millie decided she should cook something for dinner since the maid was gone. Then she remembered her new daddy, Charles, would bring home Italian food from the place with the flaming bananas and ice cream that Marnie liked so much. Millie liked chocolate cake, like Emily had shared with her, more than the bananas and ice cream. But she ate that because it was Marnie's favorite, and her new sister tried so hard to share everything she loved with Millie, just like Mommy Emily did. Pulling down a box with a picture of a chocolate cake on it, Millie looked at the directions. It seemed simple. Just add water, oil, and eggs, then bake. Reaching up to turn the doorknob, Millie decided to be brave. She would bake a cake instead of hiding in the pantry. Mommy Emily and Daddy Charles would be so proud of her for overcoming her panic attack on her own today. Looking around, Millie began getting the things she needed out of the cupboard and the refrigerator. Then she spent several minutes trying to figure out which knob turned on the oven. Dr. Charles Haywood sped home through the early rush hour traffic of Las Vegas. He scowled at the light, willing it to change as he was forced to stop. Their adopted daughter Millie was home alone. She had been home alone for over an hour, something he and Emily had promised she would never be until she was comfortable in their home. Millie had acute PTSD-related anxiety attacks and so many phobias, the result of severe abuse by her violent, drug-addicted biological mother. But the child had shown amazing courage when she testified against the mother who birthed her. The trial convicted Diva Divina Velvet of murdering her other children and her husband. Millie had been lucky to survive the sociopathic woman. He uncharacteristically honked at a slow car in front of him, worried for Millie, home all alone. The maid was off, and both doctors had forgotten about the early release from school. Marnie Ann had ridden with a friend to dance class and called to ask if she could take Millie some ice cream after ballet lessons. Realizing their error, Charles had canceled his last 2 appointments and rushed home. He parked in the garage and went in the rear foyer before the garage door closed. Inhaling to call out for Millie, he smelled something off. It smelled sweet like cake, but also bitter like burned pancakes. He could hear Millie singing in the kitchen to deafeningly loud music. Peeking in around the corner, he was shocked to see his adopted daughter covered from head to toe in flour. The smoke detector was beeping in time with the music as the oven smoked. Kneeling on one of the white bar stools, now smeared with something brown, Millie was staring at her tablet, then back at something lumpy and melting looking. He realized she was making frosting flowers to go on what he guessed was a cake. Maybe. He closed the oven and tapped the alarm panel to silence the alarm. Then he typed in a code to cancel the alert before the fire department came and turned the radio down. Millie, little angel, what are you doing? Millie blinked rapidly, looking around distressed at the huge mess. I, I, it's okay. Don't be upset. What did you make? Charles asked gently. I made a cake, but it isn't finished. Millie's chin trembled. I wanted to make it pretty for Mommy Emily and Marnie. The cake was obviously still warm because the frosting roses were melting. Oh, well, good job. You finished up you finish up and I'll tidy the kitchen, Charles offered. Millie grinned and bounced on her knees excitedly. Do you want a taste? I trimmed the cake like the video showed. Yes, please. Charles dutifully opened his mouth and accepted some almost burned and yet partly raw cake trimmings, with a smear of melting frosting. The warm, undercooked cake was disconcertingly crunchy beyond the charred part, and Charles coughed as he swallowed because it tasted so wrong. Then he got a drink of water. You don't like it? Millie stared at him with large, devastated jade eyes. He couldn't bear to tell the 8-year-old the truth, so he lied, like a good dad. Oh, it's wonderful. I missed lunch and am so hungry. I didn't chew it enough before I swallowed. Why don't you clean up, and we'll pick up dinner before Mommy and Marnie get home? He tapped her nose affectionately. You have flour on your face. Millie nodded rapidly, sending her dark curls bouncing. I had to oil and flour the pans. It was so hard, but fun too. I love baking. I know, and the cake didn't stick, so you did a good job. Now upstairs with you. Charles praised her, then sent her off to change. He looked at the cake mix box, then realized he didn't see any eggshells. Picking up the cake trimmings, he found several bits of eggshells. He carefully pushed a knife in the center and created a small hole. It oozed raw batter. Charles rubbed his forehead and called Emily as he wiped the counter around Millie's attempt to make dessert. Hello, love. Hello? Millie? Millie is fine. When I got home, she was baking a cake for dessert tonight, Charles explained. She what? Emily sounded startled. She baked a cake from a box mix we had in the pantry. It expired 2 years ago, Charles revealed as he tossed the box in the trash. She put the eggs in, shell and all, and I think she used your garlic and olive salad oil. Or that's what it tastes like. Charles groaned as Emily burst out laughing. She tried, that sweet angel, Emily insisted. Yes, she did, but the cake. I can't let any of you eat it. It's horrible, Charles bemoaned. He didn't know Millie was standing outside the kitchen door in the hall, little ears eavesdropping, as tears gathered in her pale jade eyes. Millie couldn't hear what her adoptive mother was saying, but her new dad hated her cake and lied to her about it. He wasn't proud of her. She had made a mess, and he was telling Emily. Millie wished she could hear what Emily was saying, but she couldn't. So she sat on the cool marble floor with her heart starting to break. Then Charles said something that made Emily listen that made Millie listen closer. No, Emmy, I can't just tell her the cake is bad. She worked so hard and even looked up how to make frosting and frosting flowers online. Oh, love, Millie is such a sweet little angel, and I'm so glad we adopted her. I'm sorry, but I have to get rid of the cake, or it will poison us all. She will be upset when you get home, Charles revealed to his wife. Millie is very smart and practical. Drop it while putting it in the refrigerator, beg her forgiveness, then offer to help her make another. I'll make sure Marnie Ann and I are late picking up dinner so she can still surprise us, Emily insisted, then added, I have to go. My next patient is here. I love you, Charles. Take care of her. Good idea. I love you and I will. Charles hung up, then looked at the lopsided, burnt and raw mess and its melted, separating buttercream frosting. He sighed and muttered, Forgive me, Millie. Then he picked up the cake and dropped it on the floor in front of the refrigerator. The plate shattered as the raw center splattered. Hearing the crash, Millie jumped up and ran into the kitchen. Oh, my cake! Tears still glistened on her cheeks. Mind the glass! He stopped her before she could come too far. Kneeling, Charles looked at her with true regret as he lied about the accident. She knew he dropped it on purpose, but she believed his apology. I'm so sorry, Millie. I was going to put it in the refrigerator until dinner. I dropped it. Please forgive me. Hugging his neck, Millie nodded. It's okay, Daddy Charles. Standing up with her in his arms, he looked at her clean face and clothes, then carried her to the kitchen door and said, Go get your jacket on while I clean up the mess. We'll, we'll get stuff for another cake from the store and bake it before Mommy and Marnie get home. Hurry, quick like a bunny. He set her feet on the hall in the marble, and she ran up to her room and grabbed her jacket and came back. Pulling at his hand toward the garage, she said, Hurry, Daddy. In the car, as Charles drove them to the grocery, Millie's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. Her heart was so full it felt like it would burst. She had made a terrible, ugly cake, but Charles had eaten some and lied that he loved it because he loved her. He had risked her being angry with him because he wanted to protect her from getting sick from her bad cake. Millie looked out the window and wiped away a tear, not a sad tear, but a joyful tear of a little girl who finally knew unconditional love from a parent. The end.
Aw, it's so sweet.
And that is the story of Millie's bad cake, her first cake.
Death by cake.
Death by cake.
By bad cake, that's a not nice death. But if it's by good cake, it's acceptable.
So we've all had baking disasters, I'm sure. Yeah, show your hand, and we can let it get to us. We can let it just sit there, lumpy, melted, gooey bad cake, smelling of garlic and olive salad oil.
And oddly like cake.
And oddly like cake. But we can always make a new cake. We can always make new things from our lives. And let's just try to be better with everything. I hope you enjoyed this little snippet. And we will post another one in a few days.
You'll post another one.
I will.
I'll
She'll be at Navy Boot Camp. Proud Navy mom. And then it's time to start working on The Wild Anemone, which is book dos. And I hope you all have a lovely, lovely weekend. and have a blessed time with your family. Stay safe. Be better, not bitter. Bye.
Bye.